Wonderful. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. I know.
Well, Jacquelyn, would you please take a moment to introduce yourself and tell people where you work and what you do?
All right. So my name is Jacquelyn Ziegler. I work at Guild Mortgage in Corvallis, Oregon. I've been a lender almost 20 years now, always residential real estate. Started my career with First Interstate Bank in Billings, Montana. Before that, I had worked in and owned for a short time the family restaurant business. So I had always been in restaurant, bakery business. I'd never done any type of banking at all. And came to the point where physically, I just couldn't do it anymore. My body was just like, nope, things were falling apart and not working. And so I had a girlfriend that worked at First Interstate. She said, they're hiring for loan processors. You should come and interview. And I said, no one's going to hire me at a bank. I do restaurant work. I have no education college-wise. And she's like, no, just go and interview really well and they'll like you. And so I did, and they hired someone else. So I was a little disappointed in that. And a couple weeks later, they called me back and said, we have another opening. We'd like to just hire you. And so that's how I started my career and I was the loan processor at that time. So I just learned as I went along. I had some great lenders that I learned from. And so within a year and a half, they moved me up to a lender position. And then just, started knocking it out of the park. So never really looked back after that. So stayed with First Interstate for 13 years. And then they went through some changes that I didn't like. And so another bank called me and asked me if I wanted to come over to them. And so I moved. Sorry if there's banging. I have work going on in my house. And so I switched banks. Went to Western Security Bank at that time and stayed with them until I decided to move out to Oregon. So
that's awesome. This is where we bonded. Was I knew what First Interstate Bank was because I grew up in Utah, so we had that.
No, I love it.
They had them in Oregon too. I remember them.
Did
there. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, now they're out here because they bought all of Bank of Cascades 3 years ago.
Yep, they did. They're back.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great.
Yep.
Well, welcome. So we hear you moved here to Corvallis during COVID.
Yes.
So how's that transition been for you?
So lived in Portland originally for 2.5 years, but Corvallis was always where I wanted to be. I love this area. It reminds me a lot of Montana. So I knew moving to a different state was a big thing for me, but I knew going here would soften it a little bit just because it's so similar to Montana. And my best friend from Montana lives in Corvallis. So that was going to help me a little bit too, but I didn't get any job offers here in Corvallis. No one was hiring when I moved. And so all my job offers were in Portland. So that's why I ended up there first. Ended up meeting back up with a girl I met 30 years ago. So a woman, I should say. Actually lived with her for 2 months when I first moved out here. And then I actually bought the house next door to her that came for sale right after. I know, it all worked out. It was fate. So lived there for 2.5 years, and then an opening came here for Guild for the Corvallis office here. And so they knew that I wanted to be down here. So I approached them and said, hey, can I transfer down? And so that's how I ended up coming down here finally. So
great.
It's tough. It's not been easy. First couple of months, I was quarantined in my house. So it was a little difficult, but it's gotten a lot better for sure.
But it's such a great story of how everything just fell into place perfectly. I love that so much.
It really did. It really did. Yep.
Good. So we're going to jump into some questions that we have scripted out for you.
Okay.
So we want to know how you think women, how you've been brave as a woman producer. So I know that you're a branch manager now, but you're also a producing branch manager, aren't you?
Actually, I'm not a branch manager. We don't actually have a manager in the branch here in Corvallis. We have a regional manager who takes care of this whole region, but we do not actually have a manager. It's just another loan officer and then an assistant and I in the branch here. So none of us really manage. We really are on our own, which I prefer. that way.
Yeah, I like producing better too myself. But,
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
how can you tell us a time in your career over the 20 years that you've done this that you've been brave at work? Like you've done something out of the box,
Oh,
terrifying.
yeah. I told my manager where to go one time. Yeah, so that's actually a good story, and that actually it explains a lot, I think, of what women in our industry go through. So what I found really interesting, and I'm just going to segue into this first because it ties in. When you come from a state like Montana to Oregon, the differences are quite profound. And the main is that in Montana, we have very few men originators. It's a woman's world. So we don't have a lot of men loan officers. We have some, but not a lot. Mostly it's women. And same with assistants, closers, processors, title. So it's quite interesting when you come out here. I was very surprised at how many men there were in the industry. So back in Montana, the management are men. So the higher ups are men. So I just was used to it that way. I didn't see that was any different for a long time. I didn't see that, there was something wrong here. Why isn't there more women in the higher positions? So I had a male manager. He should not have been managing our department. He was a commercial loan, a commercial lender, and had been for a long time. So commercial real estate. And they made him our manager. And he really did not know our world at all. And so he would try and do things. We always had to tell him, you can't do that. That's against the rules. You can't do that. And he'd be like, oh, okay, on to the next one. So anyways, he challenged me. They changed our pay structure and they introduced commission, which we were always base pay for many years with, you got a per loan bonus. So every loan you closed, you had I think it was $350 and very low base pay, like 20,000 or 24,000, very low. So they introduced commission income. First Interstate did. And we were kind of behind the times. And so other lenders had been doing it for like a year. And our top producer, who was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, he was on that. He was on the same commission. So my manager challenged me. He said, I want you to do this. I want you to do commission, because the other lenders wouldn't do it. You got a choice. You could stay with the way you were, or you could go commission. So I looked at the numbers and I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I really have the opportunity to make a lot of money here and work my butt off and make some good money. So they put me on the same pay structure as the man lender in Cheyenne. So exact same. So first 2 months, I knock it out. I mean, I make incredible amount of money. Like,
of course you did.
Right. You challenged me, I'm gonna do it. So I made like 20,000 in 1 month, which is, just commission. So, and then the next month I made like 15,000. So I remember I was like 35,000 in 2 months, which is, I think I made that much in a year when I owned the restaurant. So like cruising, right? Well, he calls me in his office one day and he has a piece of paper and he slides it over to me and he says, I need you to read this and sign it. And I said, what is it? And he said, just read it and sign it. So I look at it and I read it, and it is a new pay structure, effective immediately. And it's lowering all my tiers. Mm-hmm. And I said, what is this? I don't understand what's going on. And he said, we're going to lower your pay structure. And I said, well, why? And he looked at me and he said, I can't have you make more money than I do.
This is not the first time I've heard this in banks.
Right?
Right.
So mm-hmm. This is what I said.
Back in the day.
I said, so answer me this. Is Dave Maxner in Cheyenne, Wyoming getting his pay structure lowered? Is he getting the same deal? Well, I don't know. I'm not his manager, is what he said. And I said, F you. And I got in the elevator and I went up to HR and I sat down and I said, here's what's going on. And the HR woman went, he's doing what? And I said, mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, no, I'll handle this. I'll handle it. And I'm like,
please don't sue us. Please don't sue us.
Right? Last I heard of it, it went away after that. And he left soon after. He left the bank soon after.
That's right.
That is
that's really what's speaking up. So there's so many little nuggets here that I love. Taking risk is how you get things done. Like, you know, risking everything to make commission is a risk for some, and some women are terrified of that. But the other thing is, don't keep your mouth shut when shit hits the fan, right? Like, don't stay quiet. Advocate for yourself, which is something that we really think is so important. And we've been talking about this in all these interviews for women, is like, how do you advocate for yourself and really speak up when you are a woman producer? Because it's so important.
So I am not afraid of confrontation as a rule, but I've still had moments in my career when I've had to speak to my boss that I couldn't breathe. It was like I was going out on stage, that same kind of stage fright fear.
Yes.
And I consider myself pretty damn brave for the most part. So what you did was, you must have been just red-faced, hot-faced, like.
So to push me to that point, because I normally would not tell a boss to F off. That is one of my favorite words, but I don't normally tell higher up people I don't normally tell people that in general.
No.
I was so taken back that he even had the nuts to do it, you know. Just
the audacity.
Are you seriously sitting there telling and to say, I can't have you make more money than I do? You challenged me to make this money, and now I'm doing it, and now you're trying to knock me down? No, that's not going to happen. But this is what I will say about bravery and speaking up. One of my biggest pet peeves that I have is people that don't educate themselves first before they speak up. So don't sit there in a meeting and say, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, why aren't you going to do that? I just am not going to do it. I don't want to. Or it's not going to work. It just won't work. Well, why won't it work? Well, it just won't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've seen that a lot. And so I think that happens where, you know, you get, like, I've seen it like a whole group of lenders, and there's always one that's sitting there and just, you know, she takes up all the time, and she's, you know, going on and on and makes no sense whatsoever. And we get nowhere. And so, you know, the manager sitting there going, you know, so they don't listen to that person after a while, you know?
Sure. But there is, in all fairness, we always have that male equivalent too in that meeting.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't ever sat in a meeting where I was like, oh Lord, here he goes. Like,
that is so true. Yes.
Not the meeting.
Because I have one in mind.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, Jacquelyn, though, like, if this fits into our next question, kind of like, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning of your career that no one shared with you?
Oh, you know, that's a good question, but it's a hard answer because I learned so much from learning. So if I had known the answers, I might not have been successful as I am. I learned throughout the process.
You learn from doing.
Right.
Maybe a little bit.
And failure, successes and failures. Sure. Oh, sure. And so I'm a strong believer that you can, you know, there are things that someone can tell you and teach you, but I really just think life teaches you more than anything, really. And those are the lessons that you're going to remember and hopefully not replay if they were bad lessons. And, you know, but I've always had I work harder, not smarter is and kind of my funny thing to say, but it's actually kind of true. You know, I have to bang my head against that wall a couple times before I go, oh, got it. Okay. I won't do that again. Yeah. So, you know, I went into this totally blindly. I was 34 years old when I was 32 years old, when I started, I had a 10-year-old that I had raised on my own. And so I just blindly jumped in, really. And so I do think that I wish there were some things that people had told me. And I think one of them, the strongest one probably would have been, you have a voice. You can speak up. You can say something. For a long time, I felt like I'm the uneducated, didn't work in banking. I worked in a restaurant. So I'm going to sit in the corner and do my job, and I'm not going to say anything. And I didn't feel valuable, I think, is the main thing. I didn't feel like what I had to say had value. And so I didn't say anything. And so really until I started being top producer, and then I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe I do have value. Maybe my thoughts and my experience has value for other people. And so it took a while for me to really feel that, probably 5 or 6 years.
I think everybody battles those stories in their heads, whatever. Like for me, I don't have a college degree. I battled that forever. I was intimidated working with clients with college degrees or in certain areas, right? And we all face it and we all do it. And I think there's a name for it, isn't there, Missy? It's called imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Although I think it's a total myth. Yeah. Imposter syndrome, I think, is a total myth that we create it in our heads to keep us playing small. And I think that's really, I mean, when I really love this message that what you have to say has value. Doesn't matter if you're a top producer or not. Like what you have to say has value.
Yeah.
And our experiences are not to be diminished just because somebody else may value their experiences more than yours, right? Our lives and our experiences and our interactions with people all have value. And it's, I just think so many people don't think that's the case, that I think that's the biggest crime women put on themselves, is devaluing their own story and their own experiences.
Totally.
So, and that's what that's about. Okay. So, what's your favorite negotiation secret?
Listening. Listening.
Why?
And I learned that. Another favorite thing I like to say is one of the hardest lessons I learned in life was not everybody wants to hear what I have to say. When I was young, I was always very outgoing, very gregarious, very blah, 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 you know. And I learned to be quiet and just listen. And really, if you listen when you're talking to someone, they'll tell you what they need. And that is how you can negotiate. So biggest negotiations I go through is two. If they're shopping me with another lender, how do I get them to come to me? And rates. People always shop rates with their lenders. You know, can you get me a better rate? So those are two things I negotiate on a daily basis, almost. And if you listen to what the person is telling you, when they talk, they'll tell you how you can get their loan or how you can placate them with a rate. But if you're not listening, you're going to miss those hints that they give you. So I'd really say people have a hard time listening. They don't listen. Because they're too busy in their head thinking what they want to say. They're not listening to what the person's saying. So
I like that. And just to bounce off that rate conversation that you just brought up, the best defense I've ever had with a rate conversation is trust. So if you can build somebody's trust, you don't encounter the rate conversation nearly as much. Would you agree with that?
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I just think
people, and just to piggyback on that, people who have been, like right now, we're in a huge refinance. I just locked someone in at 2.99 on a 30-year rate.
Yeah.
Crazy. Huge refi. So the people I worked with before in Portland that I've been contacting, they know me. They know the job I did last time. So they hardly question me at all. because of that trust, because they know that I'll do the best job for them and I'll get them the best rate. So it's the new people that don't know me yet that I have to build that trust with. So yeah, you're exactly right.
And that's where listening comes in,
mm-hmm.
right? So when you're
right.
dealing with your new clients, you listen, right?
Right.
And you build
right.
trust and you answer their questions and you build rapport, and then it mitigates or it makes less the issue of, do I have the
right.
absolute best rate out there? Because that's a rabbit hole most people lose their minds going down.
I think what you're also said though, Jacquelyn, is so important. Oftentimes people are thinking of the next thing that's going to come out of their mouth, and they're not listening to anything the person sitting right in front of them. I mean, it's one of the things I've learned from doing these interviews, actually, is Liz and I are always trying to move on to the next thing. And we felt when we were our first couple interviews, that's what happened. And we've kind of fallen into this flow of just kind of hanging out and being chill.
Right.
And so I think that that's such an important thing for especially people who are just getting into the industry or who are new to, you know, the world of finance. Listen to what people are saying about their money and their issues and where they're at in their story.
Well, money is just feelings. Let's all be honest right now. Money is the emotion and the feeling we put with it in our own mind. Money doesn't have emotion. Money doesn't have value. Money doesn't have feeling. I know that sounds crazy, but
no, you're right.
It's whatever we project onto it. So if you're so busy moving through a 15-minute application and you're so busy trying to get to the next thing and not engage with your client, and you're not listening to the keywords and tuning into their feelings, then you're going to miss the opportunity to bond with your client and build trust. And then it's going to be like this push and pull through the whole entire transaction.
And you're going to miss what's really important to them, because they might not come out and tell you, but if you listen to them, you might figure it out, you know, and that's huge too. That's a big, you know, especially when people are at home.
So juicy good. So I love this conversation so much. But we know that you're on a time frame. So Liz has your last question.
She's going camping. So, okay. So what is the one empowering idea you want to share with women producers or other women producers?
That's a tough one. But the first thing that I'll just say what the first thing that popped in my head when you said it is trust yourself. So what I mean by that is, I feel like as women, we go to too many other places to gain our strength and our knowledge. And really, we have it from within if you trust yourself to look for it. And that sounds really smart, doesn't it? But I'm 52 years old and it took me a long time to get there. It took me till in my 40s to really understand that. And really what it was at 45, I was by myself for the first time in my life. My son was older and moved out of the house. I got divorced. And for the first time in my life, I was by myself. And I had not ever experienced that before. And so I really did some intro looking at, you know, where am I at in my life? What do I want to be in my life? What do I want to do? Do I want to stay in Montana? I'm not knocking Montana. It's a gorgeous state. But do I want to stay here for the rest of my life, doing the same thing, seeing the same people day in and day out, day in? And that's where I was like, you know what? I don't. I want to see new things. I want to see new people. I want to experience different things. But if I hadn't really, really done some deep thinking and some deep searching into myself, I would still be back in Montana, and I might still be married, and, you know, I might still be in that same day in and day out. So I feel like as women especially, we're so in tune to everybody around us, whether it be our children, our husbands, our elderly parents, which is another thing I'm dealing with right now, our clients. You know, we're so in tune in that we forget ourselves. We forget to nourish ourselves and have conversations with ourselves and reevaluate ourselves. Again, where am I at right now? Is this where I want to be, or do I want to be somewhere else? If I want to be somewhere else, how do I get to that point? So trust yourself. Have trust in yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I ramble?
No, it's perfect because I relate. I turned 47 this year, and I have one moved out of the house, one that turns 18 this year. And I think that a lot of divorces happen at this time of life. Let's just say that, because if we haven't been focused on our marriage and our interaction with our spouse, or tuned in, or we aren't tuned into each other, the kids leave, and then you're like, I'm stuck with this person.
Right.
That happens.
Who are you? Who
yeah.
are you? I don't know who you are.
And that's a lesson for all young married couples that are listening. The other thing that happens is, I always say this, nobody killed me or ate me. Like, I made mistakes, I've crashed and burned, I've made horrible financial decisions. And yet here I am, and I'm okay, and life goes on, and there is almost a comfort in that at our age, I think, right? I don't have guilt about my kids really anymore, because they're not 5 with a pacifier still, or something weird like that, right? Like, I don't have any of those issues. So I absolutely freaking love this age. This has been the most empowering time for me. Do you feel the same way?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. We really do finally fall into, like, okay, I got this. I know how it works. And that's the trust that we don't have when we're young.
Yeah. So for all of you that are young and listening, you actually can trust your instinct and listen to your gut, and you have the answers right inside of you. You don't have to
before 40.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go get another education. You don't need a damn degree. You don't need to hire. I mean, although I do like you to hire coaches named Dr. Melissa Bird, PhD, but that's another story. Like, you have the answers inside of you.
Right.
It's all in here.
Yes.
I love that. Love it.
And if you don't have the answer and you make a mistake, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The earth will not swallow you whole.
Or go talk to a woman that does have the answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Get a mentor. Have someone.
Very much so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I have one more question for you, because I don't know how long we've been doing this, but
I'm fine, so don't worry about it. I'm not on any time schedule.
Okay, good. What is the most productive tool or thing that you did as a producer that just makes your life so much easier? Do you have a productive tool, whether it's a CRM, or whether it's just a process in how you take your application, anything? What is?
Boy, that's an interesting question, because as I age, I find, like, my memory, not what it used to be.
I miss my memory.
Oh, if you find mine, could you bring it back to me? Because I've had to change those tools through my career, and I do utilize more my CRM. I write a lot. I have a tablet with me all the time, because people call me. So, like, even my phone, I have on my notes, on my phone, I'm always, because people call me while I'm in the car and ask me a question. And so that I'll have to remember what I said to them, and so I'm always writing things down. So that's changed a lot as I've aged, really. I've had to do different things. I used to be able to just be like, bing, 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 bing. And, I knew things off the top of my head. We have Fannie and Freddie, which is getting into the whole, naming everything, but they're the main rule makers, for mortgages. They have a great online, both of them have great online, where you can go in and get answers. So that's another thing, there's so many different rules and regulations that we have in my world, and I can't remember them all. I used to be able to throw them off the top of my head, but they change constantly. In the day, we would get a book from Fannie that was like this thick once a year.
I remember those
new rules for that year. Now we get emails weekly. Oh, this has changed. Oh, we're going to change this now, especially with COVID. A lot of our loan programs ceased. Yes. So I would say really using technology more than I used to is my saving grace, because I can't remember like I used to. So
names.
The other thing too is we've become so technological in our world. I do stay a little more old school where I call people. Doesn't that sound strange? Hello, can you hear me? No, I'm not going to email you and I'm not going to text you. I want you to hear my voice. I want you to get that connection with me. So I call people more than, and I kind of take a lead. Like if they don't answer and they always, text me back, then I know that that's not a person that's really, they want to text rather than a call. But I really do try and just reach out more by phone rather than just always email and text.
Some things are better explained in voice, especially complicated conditions or
right.
Yeah.
And how much do we know that people read your email and get something totally off of it that you didn't mean? What?
Why are you so angry? What? I wasn't angry. I forgot my smiley face emoticon.
It happens all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that's what I use technology more, but I'm also old school where I like that personal touch.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was fun.
Oh, that was easy.
We should actually have coffee since we're in the same town. This is
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I know, I'd love to. Yeah, anytime. You've got all my info. Not this weekend, though.
No, you're camping.
All right, hold tight.
All right, ladies. Thanks so much.